Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm back working on my front suspension. Last week I took everything off of the car, and my main focus today is to get all the bushings and the ball joints out of the control arms and get them all cleaned up and get all the new polyurethane stuff pressed back in. So I was kind of hung up last week. I drilled out the ball joints here like that in the upper control arms, but I did not have the socket for this. And just to kind of make things move along, I'm gonna run over to my buddy Steve's work. I'm gonna have him zip these off and press this rod out of the control arm and probably press out the bushings in the lower control arms just to kind of do it quickly. Normally I would light these things on fire and knock them out the old fashioned way, but I figured this would just be a little bit faster and cleaner. So that's gonna be my main focus today, get everything out, get these things cleaned up because they are freaking grimy, and make them look all nice and new again, and get those nice new polyurethane bushings in there. So that's what we're gonna focus on. So we're gonna go take a ride right now and get this stuff out. This week's video is brought to you by LCOBMW. Shop our site for Corvette performance parts, merchandise, and much more. See the link in the description or visit LCOBMW.com. So first control arm in the vise, the socket is inch and, what size is the socket, Steve?
3/16.
Inch and 3/16 socket for those nuts on the end of the control arm. Okay, so I got the first control arm done. So we're gonna grab the other one, press that stuff out, just to take a look at this shop. So nice. It makes my shop look like a barn that they put old farm animals in, but it's pretty cool. All right, now we're doing the bushings on the lower control arm. So I'm back at the shop, special thanks to my boy Steve. We just knocked that stuff out in like maybe an hour or something. And it just goes to show you that like having the right equipment can make a job super easy. Like after doing all that, I'm like, oh, thank God I was there doing that, because it would take me forever in the shop using what I had. So if you have somebody that has a press, utilize them, or it probably can't even hurt too if you don't want to try it yourself to take it somewhere and have them press out the bearings and stuff like that. So there's just a couple little tips I wanted to share with everybody, like just from the process of knocking everything out. So the upper control arms I'll start with first. So these are pretty much directional on which way you're going to press out this rod through the bearings. The biggest tell is this giant washer on the inside here. There's one on one side, and the other side it's a small little piece like that. It should actually be on the inside here, like there, right? So you're gonna essentially be pressing this downward, and that pushes the bushing, everything out this way, and then you can get the rod out that way. So that's the whole thing. And then at that point, this bushing here, you're gonna press out separately once you have that off. So keep an eye on that, and then just kind of mark everything too, of like where I just took a picture of everything before I did this, so I knew which, you know, where everything was, what washer went where and stuff like that, and labeled them left and right. So that's for the upper control arm, just to keep an eye on that. Other than that, the bushings came right out. The other thing would be the lower control arm bushings. So the bushings are, this is an old control arm, this isn't mine. This is an extra one I used when I was doing my air ride stuff. So this one here is small on the inside and big on the outside. Same here, like this. It's wider here than there. So when you're putting this in a press or something like that and trying to press it down, it's really hard because of how thick this rubber is around here. So I ended up just cutting these off and then pushing the bushing straight through this way, because it's kind of hard to get anything in like this to push it out. So that's just a real quick thing. I just kind of cut around there with like a reciprocating saw and peel that off, and then we just press them down that way and switch it, same thing. Cut that, pushed it down that way, and made no time of it at all. So the other thing is, if you don't have a press for like your ball joints, because technically with these bushings, you could do it the old fashioned way, like I said, light them on fire, put them in a vise, hammer them out. It's a lot of work. You gotta be kind of careful, you know what I mean? You gotta melt just the rubber itself out. But you know, I've done it for years when I was younger and stuff like that, but I'm not necessarily trying to do that now. Just using a press was so much easier. But as far as the ball joints are concerned, you need a tool for that no matter what. You don't want to be hammering them out because you're going to just break your control arm. So what you can get, you can rent this from auto parts stores. You can buy one. This is a ball joint removal and installation tool here. And this essentially is, it comes with all sorts of different cups to go at the bottom of your ball joint. At the bottom here, like this, it's like a big C-clamp here, and then you take this little dust shield off, and then you put a bigger cup in here, for example, something like this, like that, and then you take your C-clamp here, and then you press it out, and the same thing when you put it back in. You just use the correct attachments to press it back in using that giant C-clamp. So that's something you're gonna need no matter what if you attempt this yourself. Just to make up some time when we were there, we put it in the press, knocked the old one out, and then I installed both the new ones while I was there. As much as I want to show you struggling trying to do it myself, I mean, it took us like 5 minutes each, if that, to press these out and in. So these are all good to go here. All the bushings are out. Like that. This was painted, so I'm gonna clean this off, repaint this lower one. Both lower ones. And then the upper one, I'm gonna probably wire wheel, get this thing all cleaned up too before I start putting the other bushings back in it. But that's pretty much what I went through with the process there with the upper and lower control arm. Also too, I think it was like an 1 3/16 socket we used on the upper control arm nuts. This is a 30mm socket, that'll work too on that. So 30mm or 1 3/16 you can use for that. So now it's time to get everything cleaned up, and then we'll start popping the new bushings in. So I have them all cleaned off. I decided that I'm going to paint these upper control arms. They just didn't turn out that good. There's just a lot of pits and imperfections and that coating that's on there from the factory. So I'm just going to paint match these to these lower control arms, and I'm going to do that center section here too. Same thing. A lot of that stuff I couldn't get off, so I'm just going to paint these real quick and I'll push those bushings in. Now that I'm finished with the painting, got everything laid out here, how it's supposed to go. All the bushings, the lower control arm bushings here, that, and then the upper ones. I'll do it kind of step by step. I'll start with these ones first because these are the easiest. These are kind of like a directional bushing here. There's 2 piece here, and then there's this 1 piece that gets pushed in at the end. So that being said, these actually turn out pretty good. I mean, I'd rather have the polished looking aluminum, but I just don't want to spend all that time sanding these things out since my Frankenstein control arms are already painted because of the metal bracket. So at least they'll match. And then the bushings come with some of the grease for it, but I actually have an extra thing too. So you got to make sure you coat every single thing as you're putting it in the control arm. But we'll start with this one now. So first thing I did, I just used my grease here and I rubbed it all the way around the bushing here and then inside of the control arm. And I just use a hammer like this and just kind of tap them in place. And you can just use some extra blocks of wood or whatever on your workbench just to kind of get things set up in the control arm. And at this point I have it in the vise and I'm gonna squeeze them in, I'll show you. So I turn my vise upside down so there's more of a flat instead of the teeth on the top so they don't eat up the inside of this. So I'm just essentially, once they're squared up in the bore there, you can just run them in just like that till they bottom out. And once we get these in, we'll put the metal sleeve through them, but I'm gonna get these in first. So, pretty easy, a lot easier than getting them out, that's for sure. So I'm just gonna get this started with a block of wood underneath here. I'm just gonna hammer it down first. Yes, this stuff is just completely messy and sticky, but it works. So there you go. Pretty simple. So now knock out the rest of the lower control arm ones. All right, now I'm moving to the uppers. So this is the left side one here. So this solid bushing is going to be in the rear, and then the 2-piece one is going to be towards the front here. Essentially, we're going to put this in here like this. Same way we did the lower ones, we're going to press that in. And once that's in, we can slide this through here in through here like that. And then we'll put this one in like that. So that's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna get this in first and then we'll put this all the way through. Okay, so I have my bar here. We go in like this. My inside washer here, like that. That just slides in like that. Other washer, nut. I'm just gonna run this on here for now. I'm not gonna tighten it completely yet. So that's on there now. And then this little washer here, put that on the inside. I'm gonna put it down like this. The curved spot is gonna be up. That, put that down like that. So it's in there like that. And now we'll run that bushing all the way in. So I got this in the vise here just so it's kind of sitting on the mouth of this. So I'm going to take my 30mm socket like this, and I got it all lubed up, and I'm gonna just drive it straight down. Now, if you try to lift the control arm up together and smack it down like that, the control arm is just gonna flex. So you really need this bottom piece on something sturdy so you can kind of hammer this thing down, because it's hard to get a vise or any kind of, if you had a press, you could press it down, but it's hard to get the vise around the socket because the actual bar is gonna come through here. So you need something with an opening to push this thing down. So it's getting there. You're just gonna have to kind of work on it to get it down. So just to get it driven down all the way, banging on it was just kind of really not doing the trick. So what I did, I just took the washer and the nut, and I'm just kind of running this down to push it in all the way. And this is just kind of seating it in there to where it's supposed to be. And I'll take this off and then we'll hammer the center sleeve in. So with my sleeve in here, I'm just gonna kind of tap it down first. So I got the sleeve in there as far as I could. The minute there was actually some of the thread showing, I used the nut to run the sleeve all the way back down in there. I'm just doing this to push everything down all the way so it's seated. Then I'm gonna pull the nut back off, and I'm gonna use thread sealant on both these nuts, obviously. There's just a little gap in here. I just wanna make sure it's down all the way. All right, so the bushings are in. I got this in the vise here. So I'm going to tighten up the nuts now. So a couple important things. Red Loctite is a must on here, and there's no real torque spec that I could find for these. There's definitely nothing in the manual, and the internet has served me no justice here with giving me any information. So Loctite, and we're just gonna tighten them down as much as possible. The only thing I could think of, if you had rubber bushings back in here, before you tighten them down all the way, to make sure that you had this thing kind of back in the car, tighten them kind of tight, but put the car down, load it with the suspension on it, on the wheels and tires, and tighten them when it's on the car. Mainly because with the rubber itself can kind of bind a little bit, but with the urethane stuff, you don't really have to worry about that. It kind of moves inside of itself. So I'm just gonna Loctite these, tighten them down super tight, and that'll be it. you can almost feel it kind of bottoming out on here. So just tighten it. Yeah, it almost like stopped, so I wouldn't worry about over tightening at all. Okay, now I got all the bushings in. There's just one last thing to do. It's the upper ball joints, which are now bolted in. We're not gonna rivet those back in. So all the replacement ones come with actual bolts and hardware and stuff like that to bolt it up. So we're gonna throw that in right now, and then that'll be it. All right, I have everything laid out here. So the ball joint comes with, obviously, the ball joint. 4 bolts, nuts, cotter pin, a Zerk fitting, and then the castle nut and washer here for that. So I am going to be using thread locker on these as well. So this will go in like this here, down here, and then we're gonna mount these bolts from the bottom up like that. So all the nuts will be on the top of the control arm like this. Okay, so there you have it. That's a full front, upper, and lower control arm rebuild, bushings, ball joints, all done and complete and nice and pretty now. So I'm gonna give you my honest opinion about this job completely. So it's definitely not a skill thing. I was a mechanic years ago. I've been building cars forever, and this is more of like, if you don't have the right tools, it's gonna take you longer and you're gonna struggle with it a little bit more because you kind of need a press, that lower ball joint remover installer if you don't have that. And the other thing was a pain in the butt. As far as installation, installing all the urethane bushings are super easy, and with a vise and like a hammer, you can get everything in no problem. The only one that really gave me a problem is that one piece one at the top here, this lip at the bottom, trying to get that in there. Like if you had a press putting this back together, pushing that right in would not be an issue at all. And even that sleeve in there was really tough and kind of fought me all the way down. And I was able to get it, but it just, you know, same thing. Me going back to my buddy's work and having press and everything in would be super fast as well, but I wanted to kind of just put everything together here, which I did. So that's my tip. So not a hard job to do. Getting everything on and off is easy, but as far as getting the bushings out and the lower ball joint out takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of skill. So don't be afraid to ask somebody for help if you feel like it's a little over your head. But other than that, everything's new and updated now, so I can get this stuff back on the car. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.